ladies and gentlemen. This is Anthony Abney with Financial Freedom. I have a special guest here with us today, Jacob Gray, and we are going to be talking about the do's and don'ts of a pitch for VC investing. So, Jacob, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Nice to see you, Anthony.
Great to see you as well. Do you want to give us a little background on yourself and
Sure.
tell us who you are?
Yeah. So I started my career in venture capital back in about 99, 2000. Helped to form a venture capital fund, and we went through two different funds. So I was attached there for about 13 years. And invested in a bunch of different companies, both kind of traditional small businesses and more traditional sort of high-tech, fast-growth, early-stage software types of companies as well.
Great. And so I'm pretty sure you've seen a ton of pitches.
Crazy numbers of pitches.
Yes. And entrepreneurs who
I'll just give you an idea about that, actually.
Yeah.
So the benchmark in the VC world is that you should probably see about 100 pitches to do one deal.
Yeah, it's an astronomical number. So you've seen a lot. You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's what we wanted to talk about today. We kind of want to talk about the do's and don'ts of an entrepreneur doing their pitch to a group of investors. And what have you, let's talk about what you've seen that's worked and things that you said, I can't believe that person did that. So
Okay. I think I'd say the good news is for anybody who's looking for money, in particular looking for venture capital for their business, a lot of things work. And people have lots of different personal styles, and letting those come out when you're talking to people, whether it's on stage or just across the table from someone, is totally fine. You don't have to follow a prescription. However, I wouldn't try to reinvent the whole damn thing. I mean, a lot of people feel like they have to re-engineer a pitch. And, what works, the basic structure of a pitch is pretty well determined. And, you can go online and look at, what was the pitch for Airbnb? What was the original pitch for, 100 different businesses, Facebook, et cetera. Most of them are online. You can just look through their pitch decks, and they all follow pretty much the same structure. They start out with a need, what's the market need? What's the opportunity? And then they talk about what the solution is, and then they go into detail behind that. And, if you can follow that, and it works great. There's no need to completely change that. You'll hold people's attention.
Great. And is there a sweet spot for the amount of time that the pitch should take?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think you ought to be able to do it in 7 minutes.
Okay.
With at least 3 minutes for questions. So you gotta be able to get it across in that much time. A lot of pitch competitions and things will give you more. They'll give you 15 minutes. I think that's actually a pretty long pitch. It's hard to hold people's attention that long. But, if you can do it, you got to be able to do it in 7 minutes. If you can't, then there's a problem not with your business being too complex. There's a problem with your delivery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so when that pitch is going on, is it good to see one speaker, two, or how do you?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I mean, a lot of people want to showcase their team, right? Because the team's important. They have lots of different players in there. They want to show how awesome they are. But they do it for another reason too. A lot of early, sort of less experienced leaders bring in team members as kind of a security blanket.
Yeah.
And that shows. So I usually say don't bring anybody.
Okay.
Because that's gonna force you to master the content, even if it's not your native content. In other words, maybe you have your technologist who knows the software better, but you have to show like, hey, I'm the CEO. Like I know enough about the software to manage the software person. Right. If you don't, that's fine. Right. Don't have them there to be like, well, I don't know. Here's my software guy. He's going to answer the question. That's a killer.
Okay.
Absolutely a killer.
Okay. And so the presentation itself, have you seen presentations where it's just a ton of language and words on each slide?
Oh my God.
You can't really even.
So many people do that.
So,
and I think they do it some people do it strategically,
Mhm.
right? Some people will show like, well, here's a competitive matrix, all my competitors and all their different, the different ways that they're different from my company.
Yeah.
And they give so many data points that you can't actually read it in the time allowed. They don't read it for you.
Hmm.
And it's just it's an overwhelm tactic.
Yeah.
So it's a tactic that just says to my audience, look, I've really looked through this. There's a lot of data up there. I'm going to move on. I convinced you that I'm super smart and understand everything. I think
Right.
that's obnoxious.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I think it underestimates your crowd. So follow the normal, like there's a normal prescription for how PowerPoint slides ought to be created, how much data should be on them. You can Google that up.
Mhm.
I forget it. I think it's about 7 lines, no more than 7 words on a line.
Yeah.
Don't max out on the slides. It's super annoying.
Yeah.
I mean, but I would say you should bring slides.
Hmm.
It really helps as visual aids, and they can emphasize what you're saying, but don't read them for
Right.
God's sake. Like everybody can read,
Yeah.
and sure you can put a joke in there, like one joke slide, but
Mhm.
no more.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Okay. All right. All right. And so I've heard that you know I've heard 6 words, no more than 6 words on a slide, and just to do mainly pictures that cover the concept of what you're talking about.
Pictures, graphs are fantastic
Yeah.
if they're simple enough.
Mhm.
If you can see what they actually are.
Right.
Often, the sort of requisite logo slide, almost everybody has for any business, is like, here are all of my, clients, and they pop up, recognizable household name logos. Those are fine. They do illustrate things. Conceptual maps, like maybe a Venn diagram to show like where you are or what your product does that someone else doesn't do. Those are super helpful. Wordy slides, I totally agree. I think, if you limit it to 6, I don't know, that sounds pretty drastic, but it might be better. I mean, I'm definitely a less is more kind of person.
Okay. Okay. And so if a investor is up there and they're doing their pitch,
The investor or the
or excuse me, I'm sorry, the entrepreneur.
Yeah,
they're
okay.
up there. They're
Okay.
they're doing their pitch. If they're nervous,
Mm-hmm.
does that make you nervous?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I think the deep nature of most humans is to like root for the person, and connect with them. As soon as they start getting nervous, you start to feel like, oh man, I want you to succeed. No, don't feel that way.
Yeah.
So I think I've seen people in that situation who just say like, oh, this is my first pitch. Okay. And they just calm down a little bit by saying that. And I think that's fine. It's okay I have a hard time with public speaking. I'm going to get through this, that's fine too. But I think the other side is like, if it shows that you haven't practiced,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Right.
Like that just means like I didn't take this seriously.
Yeah.
And I'm wasting your time because I just got up here and,
Yeah.
didn't have any notes or couldn't, remember what I was trying to say. And that's just like, oh, come on.
Yeah. No, yeah. I know. So, I mean, for me personally, public speaking is not my strength. I'll do it if I have to. But a lot of entrepreneurs have that. They kind of feel like these investors are going to ask me questions that are going to totally catch me off guard.
Right.
And they have that in the back of their mind, and they kind of end up psyching themselves out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So from your standpoint, do you feel like investors try to do that? Try to ask probing questions that, to see how prepared this entrepreneur is?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I think they absolutely ask probing questions,
Mm-hmm.
but I think in a pitch scenario, it's almost never adversarial.
Yeah.
It's almost never like, I'm just going to try to trip you up.
Yeah.
Because usually, and these are the ones I've been in. I haven't been in, every different kind, but usually people are there to try to get information, and they recognize that the best way to get information out of an entrepreneur is not to start beating them up,
Right.
and telling them what they don't know.
Right.
However, like, here's a huge asterisk to that. If you start saying stuff that is arrogant,
Mm-hmm.
or you start, dismissing questions,
Yeah.
or you start, here's even worse one. You don't really know the answer, but you start making something up that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
you never want to underestimate what your audience knows about your industry.
Right.
Because I've seen people out there who know so much about an industry, like an investor, and you start saying stuff that's, and then they just say like, well, I really know that's not true or whatever. Then you're going to go down the road with some pretty snarky questions after that's going to go bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that. So it's important that everyone does their homework so that they're prepared for those tough questions. But I wanted to ask you about the flow of the presentation. So you said give the need, give the solution, talk about your team, how you're going to execute on this opportunity.
Yep.
And so there's tons of different templates out there.
Yeah.
So you don't have to give us the standard of how it should look, but have you seen presentations where just the flow was just totally off and it didn't make a cohesive story? And if so, can you tell us how to avoid, that? Can you give us an example of a non-cohesive story that would really throw off the presentation?
Sure. I mean, there are a lot of people feel like they have to lead with the biggest strength of the company. Mm-hmm. And that might be like, it might be the entrepreneur's background. Mm-hmm. Hey, I came out of a top, position at Facebook and I'm starting another social app. Mm-hmm. Right. And so you talk about yourself for the first minute. Yeah. And if I don't know the context of why it's important that you went to Facebook, I'm not interested in your background. Yeah. It might be the biggest strength and competitive advantage of the company that you're awesome and super smart, but I don't even know what the problem is that you're trying to solve yet. So, so I would say like that trap of like the strongest element first, to like get people's attention. The thing is, it doesn't need to be there. Like people go to VC pitches because they want you to give a good pitch because they want to invest in you. Right. Like they're trying to find, right? They're trying to find information because they want to do this. It's hard to source deals. They'd rather not have to look at 100 of them to do one. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Yeah. So they're going to listen. Like they're going to listen. They're going to hone in. They're trying to understand. Yeah. I don't think you need to worry so much about like grabbing people's attention. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's what I think. Attempts at attention grabbing is a big problem. Like I have to entertain everybody. I'm going to do jokes, or I have to, you don't have to do that. People are trying to learn. Like it's as if you went to a class and it was like you're in college and you're going to a class that's like incredibly important to you. Yes. You're glued to that professor the whole time. Got it. So it's not necessarily a matter of focusing on the strongest point, but making the points that make sense. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You get the strongest point in there, right, but just in the proper order. Right. Got it. So speaking of one of the points, the financials. Yeah. The financial section of the presentation. How important is that in terms of, have you seen presentations that the numbers don't look realistic, or it doesn't tell the full picture? What do you like to see when you see the financial part of a pitch? So I'm going to make a bright line between venture capital, and particularly early stage venture capital, and everything else. Yeah. Okay. So in early stage venture capital, almost no one who's an investor I know pays much attention to the financials because you don't really know. That's the thing. As the entrepreneur, you don't really know. What I do want to know from you is like unit economics. Okay. Like I know that it costs me this much money to produce this product or service, and so is going to buy it for whatever. Yeah. At scale. Right. You don't know how much it's going to cost you right now. You don't know what your production budget's going to be. You don't know how long it's going to take. You don't know when your revenue's coming in. So I ignore that. Someone draws a hockey stick on the graph, and you say, next slide. Yeah. Everybody else, super important, but it's just 4 lines, It's just, am I doing 4 correctly? It's just your revenue, your cost of goods sold, your overhead, and your net profit. Done. Move on, all the detail behind that, no one has time in a pitch to get into that. And if they're interested in what you've done in the past, then they'll be interested in looking at the future. I would say focus, for every other business, focus on the past one in the future. Okay. Because people won't necessarily like believe anything that entrepreneurs say about the future.
Right.
You know.
Absolutely. Okay. Interesting. So I also wanted to know about sources. Do you like to see sources to back up data when
Oh,
people say,
oh
when they
yeah,
report statistics? Okay.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And there are a couple tricks with that too.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them is if you can cite a piece of data early on from a really reputable source, like a government piece or an academic researcher or something like that. You only have to do that once or twice in the beginning, and then you don't have to cite anymore because everyone believes you.
Okay.
You put an asterisk next to it. You put a little citation line that's too small to read at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do that anymore. But if you never do it up front, then there's always that little idea in the back of everybody's head that, like, really, I don't really believe that number. What are you talking about? Like, something that seems, particularly if it's a shocking number.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of an example of a pitch I've heard about a sort of shocking number before. Oh, there was somebody was telling me about gift cards.
Yeah.
You're trying to fix the gift card industry, because when retailers give you gift cards, there's an enormous number of them that never get cashed in. Mm-hmm. But the number he gave seemed so preposterous. I think it was like 90% or something. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Like 90% of the value is lost?
Yeah.
And like there's no citation. I'm just like, what? Like,
right.
Come on.
Where did that come from? Yeah.
If it's hard to believe, you better cite it.
Right. Okay. Got it. And so, all right. So let's say the entrepreneur does a great pitch, they ace it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the follow-up?
Ooh.
How should their follow-up be?
Okay. Great question. And I guess you're talking now about a sort of a one-on-one situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They've done their presentation.
Mm-hmm. Investors ask a bunch of questions and dug in. Yeah.
Yep. Ask a bunch of questions and dug in. What should they do after that when they get home? What should they do?
So, a leave behind is good.
Mm-hmm.
Never a brochure.
Okay.
Always 8.5 by 11 or bigger, right? Because that's stuff people don't throw away. Yeah. I even think it's like good to give people stuff that seems a little bit valuable so they don't throw it away.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. You mean like a gift or
no, not a gift.
Just
something that's relevant.
Okay. like a hard copy of
a hard copy of your presentation, but like really nicely bound and stuff like that. Like something that's not easy for someone to just recycle.
Yeah.
Have it hang around. I think it's great to follow up with, is there any more information I can give you? Here's my last, here's an Excel sheet with my last 2 years financials or my projections. And to keep in front of people's minds, because at least with most financial people who are working on financial products, and like their attention goes all over the place. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of them appreciate it if you remind them about what's going on. Another piece of, follow up that people love is like your successes.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we just got this. I'm looking at this contract with Comcast. Next week I have a meeting with Comcast. Mm-hmm. Next week after that, it was a really successful meeting with Comcast. They asked me for whatever. Yeah. You don't have to write like long. No one wants to see a super long email on your progress, but just like little things like that.
Yeah.
Are great. They don't bother people, and they can keep you front of mind.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. So let's say what should follow up look like if if the investors are not interested in doing the investment at that time.
Yeah.
I know sometimes we'll say, hey, come back to us in 6 to 9 months, or what do you want to see a entrepreneur do in that type of scenario?
It's a hard one, right? Because a lot of people think like raising money is your first sale in a company. It often comes before you've ever sold your actual product or service, right? So if you don't demonstrate that you're a tough salesperson who knows how to be persistent, then that's kind of a problem.
Yeah, right.
I would say, one of the big problems with people in my seat is that they almost never say no. Mm-hmm. Like bankers never say no. So they just string you along.
Yeah.
Like, hey, not at this time, but maybe we'll look at this in a couple months. I really want to see this change in your company first. Blah 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 blah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So So you're left with a concern about your time. Like I have to follow up with every investor I've ever talked to because none of them will ever say no to me.
Right. Right.
So one thing is you can push them to be like, hey, give me the straight dope. If you're really not going to interested in this, just let me know.
Yeah.
You can definitely push an investor to say that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is like I said before, the investor wants to invest in you. They don't want to have to go through understanding the next person's business.
Right.
So, and if your company is any good things should be happening over time.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they've said not at this time, it's perfectly reasonable to follow up with a, oh, by the way, we had said we had not sold to Comcast the first time, but they asked us for a new meeting or whatever.
Yeah.
It's got to be real.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make that stuff up.
Right.
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 But find the positive thing that's happening. We told you we weren't done with our beta test, but now we have our beta test, and we're scheduling it for 2 weeks from now. And 1,000 people came up to our demo or whatever. Let them know those things.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
I wouldn't call them with that stuff. That's email.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I wouldn't text them with that stuff.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. That's really good feedback. You said something about hockey stick.
Yeah.
And that's some type of jargon. Can you explain what that
Oh,
means?
Sure. Yeah. So the hockey stick it's like if you look at someone's financial projections, and it's typical for a lot of early stage companies that are expecting to see really high growth. Mm-hmm. So they'll show the graph of their financial projections, and the little line graph looks like a hockey stick.
Okay.
In other words, it starts low. Like I'm going to make $5 this year and $10 next year and $15 a year after that. But then the year after that, I make $15 million. So
Right.
You see the line go like right straight up in the air. That's the classic like hockey stick growth.
Yep.
And virtually every company that you look at has some version of the hockey. I mean, it might look more like a ski slope or but something like that. That's like some preposterous amount of growth happens in 3 or 4 years from now. And I guess my point is it's fine to throw it in there, but no one believes it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for clearing that up. Appreciate that. Well, Jacob, I don't know if we should give away any more of this amazing advice
For free?
For free. No, not for free.
Okay.
I think people are going to have to tune into the next episode to get some more.
Can I say one last thing though?
Yeah.
One last thing. Dress code.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Right? Like a lot of people think like I got to wear my suit.
Mm-hmm.
No. And a lot of people also think I got to look like an entrepreneur and wear ripped jeans and a t-shirt like I'm in Silicon Valley. Right. Neither of those are true. I think you should wear clothes that's appropriate to your industry.
Okay.
And that can be a t-shirt if you're in, coding basically in software. And it can be a suit if you're in financial services. And so don't feel like you have to dress up or down just to appeal to what you think people are going to expect. Just look like your industry. Look like you're going out to do a deal in your, to meet with a potential customer or, build your thing, And people go the wrong way with that and it just looks silly. It just looks silly.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Jacob, for your time.
Always fun.
Yep. Appreciate having you, sir. Just want to thank everyone for listening in today. Again, it's your host, Anthony Abney of Financial Freedom. We had our special guest, Jacob Gray, come in today and enlighten us on how to do a pitch and the do's and don'ts of it. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the next episode.